from our studio in Atlantic City, and tonight from the Carousel Cabaret at Merv Griffin's Resorts in 1995, I'm David Spatz, and coming up next, he has one of the most buttoned-down minds in comedy. Bob Newhart joins me on tonight's edition of Curtain Call, and it all starts right now.
And welcome back. We're in the Coconut Ballroom at Merv Griffin's Resorts. Bob Newhart, good to see you.
David, good to see you again.
Back to Atlantic City. We don't see enough of you here.
Oh, that's very nice. That's very nice.
You know, over the years, I think you can count the times you've played here on one hand. They've been in different properties each time, so you've kind of worked your way down
I started at Resorts, yeah. I started at Resorts and played here 2 or 3 times, and I think it was shortly after Stephen Eady opened opened the room. Then went to Caesars, went to, we were saying, what was then the Golden Nugget, and Trump's Marina, and
made it back here?
Back here. And it's very nice. It's been, as you know, it's a temporary kind of thing, but it's been, we've done 2 nights, and the audience has been just wonderful.
I think one of the reasons we didn't see enough of you here over the past, say, 15, 16 years is you were steadily employed in an industry where steady employment is not an automatic thing.
But all that, when I was doing both shows, I always went out and I always did stand-up, because there's an edge you can lose if you don't do it for a while. And I have a real feeling that if someone says, okay, make that one a stand-up comic, if you're able to do it, I think you have to do it. I don't, you know, too many of the young guys they do it and then they get a series and then they don't do it.
It's a means to an end, kind of.
It's not, no, it's more, if you're given an ability or a gift, I think you have an obligation to share it. I don't think you can say, I don't want to do that anymore. It just, I can't ever imagine not doing stand-up.
Yeah, we had spoken on the phone a couple of weeks ago, and that was one of the questions I asked you, was your feelings on a lot of the comedians who have successful sitcoms today, like a Jerry Seinfeld or an Ellen DeGeneres or a Paul Reiser, men and women who got their start as stand-ups who now do it very infrequently, if at all. And you said that you feel that they should continue a little bit.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, I think there's an obligation. And then you have people like Rickles who never had a successful show, and he keeps doing it.
Rubbing it in, aren't you? Knowing that I might not see it, I'll have to mail him a tape, because I have his address too. Bob, you were popular on 2 distinctly similar shows, the Bob Newhart Show and Newhart, for a total of 14 years. I'm wondering what made it possible for you to make such an easy segue from stand-up comedy to sitcom acting?
Well, I mean,
2 different things.
You know where the joke is. When the writers write the joke, you know where it is. The biggest problem I had was when we'd sit down on Monday and read the script, I wanted to do it Monday or at the latest Tuesday, because if there were good jokes, I couldn't wait to get to them, you know. And they said, no, you can't do it that way, because my background was immediate response from the audience, and that was the thing that, and I think some of the performers that I worked with maybe said we under-rehearsed the show, but I didn't want to get down on it. I didn't want to over-rehearse it. I didn't want it to become automatic, and I would say, you know, if you want to rehearse some more, but I can do it 2 times today, and that's all I can do it, because I never wanted to get down on the material.
Well, the one thing I enjoyed about the work you did on both shows is that you got your laughs mostly by playing straight to the other people and letting them get the laughs.
Well, that's how you last. That's how you stay on 6 and 8 years. They tell a story about Jack Benny, and I asked Freddie DeCordova, who did many of those shows, and I guess all of Jack's shows, and it was either the radio show or the television show. I think the radio show, and they had Ronald Coleman. You know, Jack would have these friends of his as guests, Jimmy Stewart and Gloria. Yeah, Ronald Coleman, and they're sitting around on Monday and just kind of reading the script, and Jack would say, give that joke to Phil Harris. It's a better joke coming from Phil. And give that joke to, and these are all his jokes, give that to Dennis Day, and then give that to Mary, and so on. And after the reading, he came up to him, Ronald Coleman, and said, Jack, you gave all your best lines away. You know, he said, I've never seen anything like that. And Jack said, yeah, but I'll be back next week. So
was it the question of him being generous or a genius?
I think he realized that. I think too. He was an incredibly nice man, and I think he knew comedy. He knew that if you try to hog it and take every line for yourself, you're not going to last very long.
You made a comment.
It's also as much fun setting up a joke as delivering the joke.
Said the same tired old thing. I went to one for a guy named Charlie Bedlow. He was retiring after 50 years. And first, Mr. Clayton got up. He was the president. Then Mr. Tipton, the vice president, got up. And then finally, Bruce Higgins, who was the head of the accounting department, got up. And he was Mr. Trite. He had every cliche you've ever heard of in your life. And he came on, he said, well, golly, I wouldn't give this spot to a leopard. Seriously, though, you know, it's going to seem awfully funny walking into the office this coming Monday morning and not seeing Charlie Bedlow's smiling, happy face there at the desk. We all had a nickname for Charlie. I call him Smiley, easygoing Charlie. Because no matter what was going on, Charlie was always in a happy frame of mind. And in many's a night that we burnt the midnight oil. Anyway, I don't want to take up too much time. I want to bring out a guy we're all here to honor tonight, a wonderful old guy. A guy named Charlie Bedlow. Charlie?
Well, thank you very much, Bruce. I have been sitting here and listening to Mr. Clayton and Mr. Tipton, and of course Bruce, and through all of their speeches, one thought kept sort of recurring in my mind. I think I'm going to throw up. I've never heard such drivel in all my life. To tell you the truth, they call me Smiling, Easygoing Charlie. If I didn't get half swacked every morning, I couldn't have made it down to the crummy job. You'd be smiling and easygoing if you were gassed all the time too. And then after 50 years, they give you this crummy watch. So it's a Casio. It works out to about 28 cents a year. But if it hadn't been for the $50 a week, I was able to climb out of petty cash. I couldn't have made it on a lousy salary they pay her. And then they start the rumor about Miss Wilson, the cashier, and myself, and everyone says when she comes back from her vacation in Florida, you know, if we were going to get married and retire to Florida. She isn't coming back, by the way. Miss Wilson is into this company for a little over $1.2 million.
know if you noticed, but the televangelists they've been going through a really bad time for the last year and a half. It started with Tammy and Jimmy Baker, and Tammy because he went to prison and then she found this other guy and she married him, and then he got out of prison. And it was in the paper the other day. They finally got all the makeup off of Tammy, and they found Jimmy Hoffa. That was in the paper. Oral Roberts is, I think Oral has spent like a day too long in the prayer tower. You know, well, I'll tell you why I say that. Oral has written 3 books. It was in the last book he wrote about the time he met Jesus, okay? Now, if I met Jesus, that's in my first book. I mean, that is in chapter 1. You know, and you wonder how did it happen. I mean, the wife said to him, you know, honey, one thing you've never put in any of your books so far was, you know, that time you met Jesus, you know. Thank you, sweetheart. God damn, that's going in my next book, I'll tell you that.
The one thing I like most about watching you work is that you would let someone else get the laugh. You would play straight, they would get the laugh, and then you would kind of like slide in underneath it and get a secondary laugh. Was a lot of that, was any of that spontaneous?
Well, at some point the words weren't, because you couldn't do that. The structure of the show was such that on Thursday you really had to lock in what you were going to say, because the cameras would move or not move or whatever, depending on what you said. We always did the show in front of a live audience, and I insisted on that. And something happens. They feed you something, so that all week long you're doing it, and then all of a sudden you say, oh, they like that. Okay, I'll go that direction. Which, if you put a laugh track on it, you won't know. There's no way of knowing that.
Is it like a live energy type thing?
I don't know. The writers write better, because the material is going to be judged. It isn't. They're just not going to put a 19 on that and put a 16 on this one. And the energy of the performance is there, because there's a live audience.
Now you had 14 years with 2 shows, and then you had Bob. You had Bob Newhart. Well, only because it's leading me into a joke. You had Bob Newhart show, then you had Newhart, then you had Bob. You've run out of names, so you're not going to do another show.
I'm not going to do it. They offered me and I turned it down.
No, I guess it's part of the old. It's not even an old cliche. It's a show business expression. Know when to get off and know when you're. Hopefully, yeah. I probably with both shows got off maybe a year too soon, because when I left Newhart at the end of 8 years, it was my decision. CBS wanted to go forward for another year, and the Bob Newhart show, they wanted to go forward for another year. I was very proud of the show and thought it was a special show, and I didn't want it to limp off. And there were 2 shows that stayed on one more year, and it hurt them. It hurt the quality of the show, and I never want. So I'd rather go off a year too early than a year too late. Well, then I guess we're not going to see a show
I don't think
the right thing. Unless the has the right script.
It's another time. It belongs to another generation, and I've had it's been great, and they're very good. Seinfeld and Ellen and Brett and Paul Reiser, they're good people.
Have they ever solicited any advice from you, or I mean, do you see yourself in the role of the
elder statesman?
Yeah, elder statesman, the sage prophet of a sitcom.
No, I'm sometimes taken aback that some of them know my work as well as they do. I mean, that they will start quoting my routine. Jack Benny used to do that to me, and I found that Jack said if he were ever in a nightclub where I was performing, the next routine was to be the Abe Lincoln routine. So it happened at the Palmer House in Chicago, and Jack was in the audience because he was opening the next day, and I did Abe Lincoln, and as well as I could remember it, because I hadn't done it for a while. And Jack came back and he said, "You forgot this, you forgot that, you forgot this, you forgot that," and he was right.
What an incredible compliment, though.
Yeah, from him, that's
must have made you feel wonderful.
Yeah.
Listen, I can't let you go without reminding you that in a couple of weeks, Atlantic City is going to crown its 75th Miss America. Now, I'm asking you this as not as a comedian or a comedy actor and a wonderfully talented show business performer, but as a former accountant. How would you like to have the pressure of tabulating those ballots on live national television?
Well, first of all, I get it wrong. I'd probably be off by a couple, you know.
But you always figured that was okay, right?
Yeah, that's
You've come close enough.
But in that case, it's not. You really have to get it. You really have to get it right. There's tremendous pressure, and I feel for those girls.
And for the accounting team of Price Waterhouse.
That's right. That's right.
Do you ever watch the pageant? Do you and your wife
Oh,
ever
sure.
watch?
Oh, sure.
Have parties with the Rickles, right? Have Don and Barbara.
Don and Barbara, and yeah.
And Ruth
yeah.
from Miss California.
And we have, we have a great time. We just enjoy each other. We were away for almost 5 weeks. We went to Beijing, and went to Hanoi and Saigon, and we just have laughs. We just have a great time.
As long as it's working, as long as you're having fun, that's what counts.
Yeah.
Bob Newhart,
David,
thanks so much for joining us.
Good to see you again.
On the first day of Christmas, Mama true love gave to me poetry in a pear tree. On the first, on the second day of Christmas, Mama true love gave to me golden drumming for golden rings. Three calling birds